Whenever you're evangelizing or whenever you begin telling people about God, it won't be long until you hear an argument something like this. Someone will say something like, "Oh, I believe in God about as much as I believe in the flying spaghetti monster." And what they're doing is they are bringing up something that is fictitious in order to make fun of something real. What they're doing is they're appealing to emotions by trying to make something sound funny or make something sound illogical, but they're not actually bringing up any kind of logical argument against God. What they always do is they will build a straw man version of God, which isn't the true biblical God, who is outside of time, space, and matter, who is not some guy in the sky. Because this another thing you hear a lot is sky daddy and all this, but the true biblical God is outside of time, space, and matter. So what they're doing is they're building up a straw man and they're attacking the straw man instead of actually addressing God and actually making a logical argument against the true biblical God, the intangible, immaterial, all-knowing God that is the intelligent source and the cause of our universe. You know, I can do this same thing though, and we can actually do this with things that we know are real. If let's just pretend that you were in a room when you were born and you were raised in this room, and maybe someone brought to you puppies every once in a while, or you saw a few birds and you saw cats, dogs. So you've seen some of the basic kind of animals, but all you really know is this room, a few animals, and you've seen a few other people. And these are the only things that you've ever seen. And then somebody was to tell you, you know what, man, we're actually on top of a huge ball that is floating around a huge fireball, in space, and there's nothing holding it up. It's just floating all on its own. It's this huge ball of water. You probably look at him like, come on now, that sounds like a fairy tale. It sounds like some made up thing. Or if somebody was to tell you, that there's bugs out there that light up like a lightning bulb, its butt lights up and it flies around. You'd be like, come on, man, stop playing, and especially if somebody was to say this in a sarcastic way. Oh yeah, man, I believe in God just as much as I believe in pink birds, that are real skinny, but there actually are pink birds. Or I believe in God as much as I believe in bugs that shoot acid out their butt. Or actually, there is a bug that shoots acid out its butt. It's called a bombardier beetle. It mixes two chemicals together and is able to shoot acid. All these things sound very crazy and irrational if you had never seen them. If you've never seen these things, there's no way you would believe them if somebody just came and told you. If somebody explained an elephant to you, a huge animal with these big floppy ears, but you've never seen one, it would sound like it's something real goofy. They explained the way its trunk looked and all these things. You would look at them and you would laugh at them, especially if they did it in a sarcastic way. And it's the way they explain God, because they haven't seen God, which nobody can, and because they are not able to recognize the experiences that they have from being from God. Then they're able to shoot these kind of sly remarks. You know, I always use video game analogies because I believe it's such a strong analogy when it comes to talking about God. But whenever you're playing a game, maybe online, and the characters in the game may actually, we can actually control them and say things. But if you were to be inside of a game, maybe a virtual reality game, and you were born and you had on this virtual reality, you know, you had these glasses on and you thought this was reality, and you were talking to somebody on the game, and somebody was like, man, somebody created this game. You could sit there and argue all day. You'd be like, man, there's no evidence that somebody made this game, and there's no way that that person can tell you about that the evidence is that you're in the game. That's the evidence. The evidence that you're there is the evidence that someone created it, and that is the same situation we are in life. The evidence for God is just the fact that we're here. In order for us to be here, we had to have been created. Something had to be eternal. Something, and there has to be an existence of intangible, everlasting things like logic, like human minds, like mathematics. All these things are intangible, immaterial things that are everlasting, that we cannot deny that are real, they're tangible, and they're everlasting. And God, and all these things are attributes of God. The vastness of space, the creativity that we see in the life on earth are all showing the glory of God. You know, in Psalms we're told that the heavens declare the glory of God, and it's so true. If you really just look at all the different kinds of planets, and you look at the stars in the solar system and all the different galaxies, and you see just how vast it is, you can kind of get a glimpse of the power of God. And a lot of people, they take it the wrong way. They say, oh, well, since there's so much out there, then you know, we're just you know, we came by chance or whatnot. But this is all for us to see and to understand the power of God, and also for us to understand the magnitude for His love for us. Even though He's created all these big things, we are actually the pinnacle of His creation. We're made in the image of God. Nothing else is made in the image of God. Not even the angels are made in the image of God as we are. So we are the pinnacle of God's creation. It's important that we understand this. You know, it's real hard for a lot of people to believe things that they can't see. And even one of the apostles was like this, and that was Thomas. You know, they call him Doubting Thomas. You know, the apostles had, the rest of the apostles had seen the risen Jesus, and they were telling Thomas, he's like, man, you know what? I'm not going to believe it unless I see Him myself. And then at one of their gatherings, here comes Jesus. He shows up, risen from the dead, and tells Thomas, here, put your hand through the holes in my hand, and put your hand through the spear wound in my side. And he falls on his knees and says, my Lord and my God. He understood that Jesus really was God. You know, the difference between what Thomas was doing and what we're doing is he was really a follower. He wanted to know what the truth was, and he wanted the right, and that's why God revealed Himself to you. You know, and I have to kind of say the same thing about me. You know, God didn't reveal Himself in some kind of miraculous way. I didn't see Him coming down from the sky. I didn't hear any kind of audible voice, but through God making an impression in my life, and through a series of coincidences and things and people in the church doing things, I had no way to further deny it. But I had to first start really wanting truth and not wanting to hold on to my sin, because this is what really blocks us. This is what keeps us from looking for God honestly. And it's hard for people to understand because it's a subconscious thing, the love for our sin and how much we don't want God to be real. And people might think that, oh, logically, I want God to be real, but really they don't, because right when you acknowledge God, you have to acknowledge that you do things wrong. And this is what stops people. You know, in Romans, we're told that it is the suppression of the knowledge of God through our wickedness that keeps us from God. So it's important that we remember that God is as real as anything, because we're here. We're inside His creation. It might sound crazy, but like I said, I can make anything sound crazy. I can make you sound crazy. If you were blind and you never saw anybody, I could say, you know, there's these meat people walking around with 5 wiggly things hanging off their limbs and wet eyeballs. You know, you can make anything sound funny and sound crazy, especially if you've never seen it. So remember, God is invisible. He's not able to be seen, but we can see, but we know God is real through the things that are created. And this is what we're also told in Romans. So we just have to remember that God loves us so much that He's given us so much information. He's given us so much evidence of Himself. His evidence is just the mass variety of different things that are in this world. And so if evolution was really what created all these different things, it would have no real reason to make such a diversity of species. You know what? Germs survive just fine all by themselves. Matter of fact, germs survive better than anything else. And they can multiply and they can live forever. So why would germs create more competition for themselves? Why would germs even turn into these different kinds of species? You know, all this diversity in life just shows us more and more that there's a mind behind the process. Remember, the evidence for God is everywhere that you look. Everything that you see, everything that you hear, everything that you think is the evidence for God. Something to think about.